Okay, story time. So a friend of mine calls me today and he says, "Do I have a story for you?" And anytime someone calls me and says, "Do I have a story for you?" I know it's going to be wild and I know it's going to be political. And this was that plus more. So today, his wife had to attend a funeral. Unfortunately for her, someone she grew up with passed away. Now, a little bit about this young man who passed away. He went to the military after high school. During his time in the military, he went to war. During that time at war, he was hurt. After coming back from war, he was put on medication. That kind of forced him to fall into this lifestyle of self-medicating, illicit drugs, and all those types of things. Unfortunately, sadly, he was found dead in his car. So she went to that funeral today. And during the funeral, people were getting up and they were basically just talking about him, talking about his life, telling stories and so forth. Aunts, uncles, cousins, or whatever would get up and they would say a few things about him. He was raised mostly by his stepfather. So at some point, his real father gets up and he starts talking about his son. And he's thanking aunts and uncles and everything. And then he says, "I also want to thank his stepdad. He stepped in and he took care of him, and I really appreciate him for that." And then he says, "I also want to thank our president, Donald Trump, for taking care of our veterans." My friend was so shocked when this happened that she let out a giggle. It wasn't even on purpose. She probably never thought she would ever giggle at a funeral, but she kind of let out a because the man at his son's funeral decided to thank Donald Trump for taking care of veterans. There's so much to unpack with this story. First of all, his son died while Donald Trump was president. I'm not saying it's Donald Trump's fault. It's not. I mean, there were so many circumstances that led to this man's sad death. But it happened while Donald Trump was president. Why you would think that was the appropriate time to thank a president after your son had died during his presidency? But then the other thing here is, what are you saying exactly? What has Donald Trump done for veterans? Could you imagine if you're sitting there and the mother or the stepdad there knows that your son didn't like Donald Trump at all? Maybe you're a family member there who's a veteran, who thinks that, some of these freezes or some of these, cuts that Donald Trump is making hasn't been good for the veterans. Like, why would you bring politics into your son's funeral? Like, that's absolutely crazy. And my friend said after the funeral, someone that was there sitting close to her said, "I heard you let out that kind of giggle when he started thanking Donald Trump." And my friend was like, "Yeah, I couldn't believe it." And then the lady who said that to her was like, "Yeah, I couldn't either." I was like, "Why would you say that?" So other people there thought the same thing. I can't imagine, and I don't care who the president is. I don't want politics brought up at my funeral. There are people probably sitting there thinking, what the hell? And this was the real dad who had said he was thanking the stepdad for taking care of his son. But he thought in that moment, while thanking family members, while reminiscing on his son's life, that this was the appropriate time to thank Donald Trump for taking care of veterans. Something that is based in no facts at all. Donald Trump has done absolutely nothing for veterans. But there's just so much, how much of a cult member do you need to be to think that your son's funeral, literally days after his death, is the time when you're with family and friends, people who are mourning the death of your son, people who are thinking about the good times, the bad times, just thinking about your son, for you to go, "I want to thank our president, Donald J. Trump." at a freaking funeral. Absolutely crazy to me. That is absolutely freaking crazy to me. I don't know if I'll ever hear a crazier story than that. I just don't think I will. I mean, I've read stories of people losing their husband or their wife to the Trumpism, to the MAGA cult. And they've been crazy stories like, my husband and I had a great, relationship. And then he went down the rabbit hole and I couldn't get him, to stop believing some of the crazy stories out there and everything. I mean, I've heard some of the craziest stories about people losing their loved ones to like the MAGA cult. And they're like, I can't save them. I had to leave them. This story is more bizarre and more wild than any one of those stories that I've ever read. I'm literally at a loss for words right now. If you've ever heard a story, anything similar like this, please let me know in the comments, because this is absolutely crazy. It is absolutely crazy. My goodness. Listen, you guys, we're over 90,000 subscribers, and I just want to just tell you guys, express my gratitude to you for supporting this channel. In my wildest dreams, I would have never thought that so many people would decide to subscribe to a channel of mine, of me just sitting here talking politics with you. So I really want to express that gratitude and tell you guys thank you for supporting this channel. I really do appreciate it. Period.
Don't want no enemies or ops. Envy in their heart, I tell them stop. Vacation on the yacht.